Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this event. Thank you for taking time off. I know the weather is great. It's Friday, so I appreciate people being here. My name is Paul Prescott. I'm an organizer on staff with Teamsters for Democratic Union, member of the Philly DSA Labor Branch, and I guess you could say a longtime cheerleader of Teamsters Local 623. And so before I start, I just want to thank Local 623 for welcoming us into their hall. Thanks to Philly DSA and Jobs with Justice for co-sponsoring this event. And by the way, if anyone has a wedding coming up or a baby shower, talk to Richard about renting out this hall, beautiful space. I know at my wedding I want to have that Teamster phrase somewhere in the pictures. So we're here to talk about the UPS contract fight, and I think we have a big year ahead of us, and this might seem like a strange place to start, but this morning, on my Facebook feed, yes, I still use Facebook, there was a memory from April 2020, right after the COVID pandemic, and it really made me think, a lot has happened in these last 3 years. And in many ways, I think we're in a very different political moment now than what existed in February of 2020. For years, decades even, probably as long as I and many people in this room have been alive, we've been told that we now live in a quote-unquote knowledge economy. Industrial workers, manual labor, they don't matter anymore. They're on their way out. All of us are going to be in college for 8 years. We're going to work in cubicles. We're going to work from home for all of our lives. When I was a public school teacher, I heard constantly, our students, their future is everyone's going to become a coder, apparently, which was news to me. And right now, even Facebook and Twitter, they're laying off their coders. But when the pandemic hit, we saw, who really matters in this economy and society. We saw during COVID-19 up to now, it was nurses, Amazon workers, postal workers, dock workers, rail workers, sanitation workers, UPS workers that have kept this society moving and are very much clearly still important to our economy. And I'm sure, others can say the same, but lately I've never sat at home and ordered as much crap as I have in my life as these last few years. And so companies like Amazon, like UPS, have taken advantage of this situation, and they're making profits that even they could never dream of. But I also think this experience of the last few years has given us as working people just a little bit more confidence to assert ourselves and to fight for the stuff that we know we deserve. And so I think we're in a moment that's full of opportunity that we need to take advantage of. The public overwhelmingly supports labor unions at a higher rate than they have in half a century. We're seeing workers at Starbucks, at Amazon, at all kinds of new places forming new unions. We're seeing more people file for union elections than we've seen in a little bit. But still, I think we have to acknowledge that right now, union density is still low, and for the most part, working people are on the defensive. And, I certainly don't have all the answers about how we get from where we are to a better position, but I do think I can say confidently that working people need to see other working people taking on corporate giants and winning. If you see someone else stand up to the schoolyard bully, you're going to think that and start to believe that you can too. And so, I'm sorry to add pressure to any of the UPS Teamsters here, but this is why I believe this UPS fight will be the most important fight of 2023. The UPS contract expires August 1st. It covers 340,000 Teamsters across the country, which is the largest union contract in the country, and it's truly national in scope. So whether you're in Manhattan, whether you're in Philadelphia, or a small town in Idaho or Montana, UPS has a presence and UPS workers have a presence. And so I also think that even workers who are not in the union are going to be paying attention to this fight. And some of them, I think, could draw inspiration from it. And of course, the decisive factor in all this is going to be the workers themselves, how they're able to pressure the company. But I also think we need to rally the public around this fight. In 1997, UPS workers went on strike, and they won big. And they did it on a message that part-time America won't work. We all deserve to have one full-time job that's enough to take care of our families and take care of ourselves. And throughout that strike, the public was clearly on their side. You had organizations such as Jobs and Justice, NAACP, faith organizations, other unions rallying around that fight. And like any corporation, UPS cares most about their bottom line and their profits. But I think they also know that their public image will affect their bottom line. So, we want this event to be the beginning of an all-hands-on-deck effort to support the Teamsters and help them win big in this fight. So, tonight, we'll be hearing from 4 speakers from UPS, Amazon, and the Postal Service. So, maybe I'll introduce them one by one before they speak. So first, I'm honored to introduce the Principal Officer and Secretary Treasurer of Teamsters Local 623, Richard Hooker.
So thanks everybody for coming out. We really appreciate this. This is awesome. I mean, I did not expect to have this many people, but thank you guys for standing up with the workers, because that's what we're here for. Not for any officer, not for any title, but we are here because of the workers. We all know what happened at the height of the pandemic. We were essential, heroes, all these great adjectives that you never heard before from corporations and employers. Now, since the height of the pandemic has calmed down, they want to treat our workers as if they're disposable. As Paul eloquently said, we have 350,000 UPS workers, and we want to win this fight. Those workers have had enough of these corporations. $318 billion is how much UPS made over the life of this contract. Billion would it be? $318 billion. That's how much they made. Now UPS doesn't make that amount without people like Eric Lexington right here. He's a part-timer, right? Part-timers make up 70% of UPS's workforce. Think about that for a minute. They make up 70% of $318 billion. Do the math on that. But when you talk to UPS, it don't mean anything to them. Nothing at all. That's going to change. August 1st, we're going to be on the side of the road. That $318 billion is going to go out the door. So now I'm going to turn it over to one of my favorite members here. All of them are my favorite, but this one is extra special to me. He's also a part of our Unite Committee. Every Tuesday, he's at the gates educating our members, engaging with our members, because that is very, very important to the struggle. We can talk, we can come up with the greatest plan, but if we're not out there talking to our members, it means nothing, right? So it was very important to us to make sure that our members were able to identify with the workers. Not just coming from Richard Hooker, not coming from anybody on the executive board, but coming from Eric Lexington and Mara and Jeff Bethowitz, Keith Roberts, and all these other workers who work at UPS. They need to hear their story because they have the same exact story. And during the pandemic, what did they have to do? That was forced to come in. 6 punches, 7 punches. You had to go home and you had to worry about your family. Were you going to bring that COVID disease home to your family? You had to take your clothes off before you went in the house. Some of our members didn't even see their loved ones for weeks at a time because they did not want to expose them to the pandemic. In our local alone, we had nearly 500 people catch COVID. That's that we know of. 500 people. You know what happened? UPS still kept working. They still kept running. They still made $318 billion. While our members were dying, they made $318 billion. While they were forcing people to come in, they made $318 billion. August 1st comes, our members want a piece of that. I told them from the very beginning when we sat down with them that our members would not sign any agreement that did not allow them to share in those profits. If our members are not sharing those profits, see you on the side of the road August 1st. All right?
Richard, he took my job. introduced already. But as Richard said, I mean, I think most people here probably, when you think about UPS, you're thinking about the package car delivery drivers who you see out there every day deliver packages to you. But a lot of people don't know the vast majority of the workers at the company are part-timers who work in warehouses sorting and loading packages to go out. And nothing at UPS could move without part-timers. And this fight, some would say is actually even mostly about these part-timers. So I'm going to introduce Eric Lexi, who works part-time at UPS, a member of 623, and works at the airport hub, correct? Oregon Avenue, sorry, at Oregon Avenue. So give it to Eric.
Thanks, everyone. It means a lot to me that you're here on a Friday when it's really just beautiful outside. So as you heard, I certainly would not say that the contract fight is mostly about us, but part-timers are really significant in this, and I wanted to talk a little bit about why. So this situation where 70% of the workforce now is part-timers, this is something that I think the company has engineered very, very intentionally for a couple of different reasons. It's a very, very bad situation for the union and a very good situation for UPS. Now, most people who take part-time jobs at UPS, they start during what we call peak season, which is the period from October through December, where the company's volume is at its highest, and they're basically hiring people off the street during this time to meet the demand. And during that time, the hours available to you to work are plentiful. They'll practically let you work whatever hours you want. They're so desperate for people. And they're offering wages in many cases that are designed to compete with their closest rivals at that busy time of year, like Amazon, for example. So when I started as a part-timer at Oregon Avenue in October of 2021, the part-time rate was $19 an hour, even though the, frankly, shift contract we have right now stipulated a minimum of only 15 at that time. That was what they did to compete with Amazon. But because that same shift contract does not restrict them from doing so, shortly after peak season was over, they dropped the rate down to 15 on all of the people they had hired at 19, and all of the people who'd been there before that. And that was at the same time that, now that the volume was dropping, they started cutting everybody's hours. And I've been here long enough now to see that this is something the company does every year. But from the impression I get, it's something they do more and more intensely as the years go on. But it's normal. As the volume winds down, they start pushing part-timers to do more in less and less time. And some part-timers are only getting the minimum number of hours that are guaranteed to them by their contract, which can be as low as 3 per shift. And the wages will fluctuate throughout the year as they decide, well, we need to hire some more people and not enough people are interested, so we'll bump the pay up again. Then later on they have enough people to bump it down again. As volume goes up, they'll give you a little more hours, then they'll decide that you should get it done faster, so they'll change your start time to be later and expect you to finish at the same time. And so from month to month, you don't know what your income is gonna be. You can't plan your life around it. And on top of that, supervisors routinely violate what contract protections we do have by performing part-timers' work for them to get them off the clock faster, or sometimes sending them home with no work at all, even though they showed up on time when they were scheduled to work. They're not allowed to do that, but a lot of part-timers don't even realize they have the right to speak up, or they're too afraid to say so. And the financial motivations for the company to do all of this are very obvious, but what may be less obvious is the effect that it has on the strength of our union. Because the unreliable income and the high pressure from management means that the turnover among these jobs is absurdly high. In the first few months after my first peak season, I think probably a solid half of the people working on my pre-load box line had already changed over. Because so many people just said, I'm not sticking around for this crap. And I can't really blame them. And the thing about this is that it means that people don't stick around long enough to earn benefits or raises, but it also means they don't stick around long enough to learn about the union or what it says in their contract. In a lot of cases, they don't even know that they have a contract. And the company uses this to divide part-timers and full-timers. Part-timers come to think of their jobs as these second-class kind of throwaway positions, and they don't participate or they don't learn about the union. So when contract negotiations do come around, they don't vote on a contract. When leadership elections come around, they don't vote on leadership. And so the impression is created for everyone that the union is really just for the full-timers, not really for the part-timers. And then the company laughs all the way to the bank because we're a divided union and we're not strong, and then they can get concessions for everybody, including the full-timers. And the other thing that this does is the contract violations against part-timers that I mentioned, like supervisors stealing their work from them. Over the years, that has become normalized because so many part-timers either don't have the courage to speak up about it, or they don't even realize that their rights are being violated when it happens. And then for the few full-timers who do stick around long-term, it becomes so normal that they just look the other way when they see it happening. Some of them are afraid that if they speak up, they'll become a target for retaliation by management. And they're not wrong, that does happen. The union can stop that, but if you're afraid to speak up in the first place, are you gonna go to the union to defend you? So the only way that we can actually fix what's broken in this contract for everybody, and believe me, it's broken as hell for those drivers too, it's not just us. But the only way we're gonna fix it for all of us is if we can resolve these divisions and get the part-timers involved and educated and aware. Because if we don't have high part-timer engagement, when this contract fight comes around and we're threatening to go on strike, 30% of the union threatening to go on strike isn't enough. We're not gonna beat the company if 70% of the union is sitting it out, or worse, crossing the picket line. But I know this sounds like a pretty bleak situation. I'm actually feeling pretty good about it over the past few months, believe it or not. So as Rich mentioned, I've been a member of our Unite committee, which is the committee that we've been using to table outside of our facilities every week for the past few months. And what we do is we give information to our members as they're leaving, educate them, try to get them involved, tell them when we have meetings, tell them about the contract campaign, what's going on, what we stand to win. When we first started doing it, I would regularly talk to part-timers who I would start to talk about it, and they would just be looking at me blank, and I'd realize, okay, I gotta back up. So you know we have this contract with UPS, right? And they'd say, no, what? But months later, that actually really doesn't happen anymore, believe it or not. It's working. Now, when we talk to people, they know about the contract. Like, they know the contract is expiring. Sometimes they don't remember when. They have to ask me, when is this thing over again? But they know it's happening. And they know about the potential for a strike this summer. And when we first started doing this, I was expecting that I was going to run into a lot of the usual type of company propaganda that you always hear whenever there's any kind of union action being talked about. You know, we can't go on strike. They're gonna fire us all and replace us. They'll close down the facility. But I've actually heard remarkably little of that. What we do hear is from people who are hesitant. They have concerns. They want to know, am I gonna have an income if we go on strike? Am I gonna still have my benefits? The answer to both those questions is yes, by the way. And that helps a lot when you're talking to people. And the other thing that I've been noticing recently is our membership meetings are starting to be attended by part-timers. Last year, I would go to meetings and sometimes I would look around and think, I think I might be the only part-timer here. But every meeting I see part-timers, and I'm seeing a lot of part-timers showing up who have never been to a meeting before. But it's still not to the 70-30 proportional representation that I would love for it to be, granted, but it's going up. And that's a very positive sign, I think. And then there are the members who I talk to, and they're not hesitant. They say, hell yeah, when are we doing it? I want to go on strike. I hate this company. And it's not rare that I hear that. So I know the work we've done on the committee has played a big role in this progress that we're seeing, but I cannot take all the credit for it. I have to give a good portion of it to UPS management. Because this situation that has been so beneficial for them over the years with part-timers, I think it is finally actually starting to backfire on them. When the pandemic hit, and like Rich was talking about, volume levels soared higher than they've ever been. Profits soared higher than they've ever been with it. Well, UPS shareholders, they got a taste for those sky-high profits, and they don't want to hear any excuses about those profits going down. They don't care if the volume isn't what it was the first 2 years. Why can't we keep getting the same amount of profits? So if you are UPS management and you're tasked with maintaining record high profits when you have less volume, there's really only one way you can go about doing that, and that is trying to cut costs even more. As a result, since last peak season, management has gotten more aggressive than ever about pushing part-timers to work harder in less time, getting them off the clock faster, starting them later. And all of the people who have been around a long time, the few who stuck it out for 5 to 10 years, they all say the same thing, shaking their heads. It has never been like this before. It's never been this bad. And I used to hear a lot of frustration and anger from those members, but not like now. They're furious. People who were just being able to make ends meet with this job now are struggling even to do that. And then they hear about the most recent numbers from the company, how last year they just pulled in another almost $14 billion in profits. How the CEO pulled in, what was it, 27 million, Rich? 27 million. That's about twice what the previous CEO was making. And our wages have gone nowhere except occasionally down. So people are furious. I mean, really, over the past few months, I think management has done so much to drive people to our tables and our meetings that I should probably file agreements on them for doing my work for me. And really, though, it makes sense because part-timers have gotten the most screwed in our previous contract negotiations, and so they have the most to gain. What we're demanding from the company with this new contract is a permanent living wage for part-timers, an end to them changing our pay rate on a dime whenever they feel like it. We want to strengthen our protections from over and under work with a higher guarantee of hours and stronger penalties for supervisors violating our protections. And we want to create more full-time jobs so that part-timers, if we can get these changes, we can fix the damage that's been done to the contract, but we can also fix the damage that's been done to the part-timers' sense of ownership of their union. We can make this into a job that part-timers feel is a valid long-term prospect, something that is worth holding on to and fighting for. And that's going to draw them to the union and away from the company. It's going to take away a weapon that the company has been using to divide us in half for decades. But there is also one sense in which this is, I think, going to have reverberations into the future, perhaps even in a greater sense, because we're not just trying to rebuild the power of the Teamsters right now. We are trying to build a new American labor movement. And we're working in an industry that is now more deeply tied to the rest of the American economy than it has ever been, logistics. I really cannot overstate the amount of disruption that is going to be caused if 350,000 UPS Teamsters walk off the job this summer. A lot of people don't realize this, but UPS does not just drop small parcels off to residential locations anymore. We drop off huge retail supply deliveries. We drop off supplies to industrial facilities. Commercial business is an enormous part of it. So this is going to send, if it happens, an incredibly loud message across the country to American workers to show them that they have power when they stand up together. It's the biggest opportunity we have ever had to send that message in our lifetimes, so I just don't think that we can afford to miss it. And I'm very grateful to you all for coming out.
Vince, who walked in. We're talking about, give it up for Vince, who led an organizing drive at a Home Depot in Philadelphia recently. Give him a round of applause. Sorry. But, again, since we are talking about this new generation who are getting involved in the labor movement, and just to hammer a point home, Eric, I think, was making about, where many workers are at, even people who aren't even part-timers. How many people in this room, raise your hand if you've been on a strike before? Okay, so there's about 5. That's probably a better percentage than America right now. So, and the reason I'm pointing that out is I think something like, if there is a strike that is successful, that is a powerful formative experience that just most workers don't have. Most people don't have that experience of exerting that kind of power. We can talk forever about how do we change things in this country, but I think things like that are formative experiences are the starts of really changing this country for working people. So next, we mentioned before that, this is bigger, I think, than just UPS. It's bigger than the Teamsters. Has anyone ever heard of Amazon?
No.
No, okay. Chad. They seem kind of important to our economy, and these workers are getting organized too. So our next speaker is an Amazon warehouse worker. Please welcome Nate Gosweiler.
Thank you, I appreciate the introduction. I appreciate you all coming out today. This is really a great feeling being part of a room like this with so many people that truly care about this and are here to be with this fight. It's very inspiring. So, as Paul said, I work at Amazon. I work at a delivery station up in Northeast Philadelphia. We're not those huge fulfillment centers. We're smaller. We load up the vans that take the package to your doorstep. Now, I'm sure you've all heard about some of the conditions at Amazon, some of the things that they expect of their workers there, all the stuff they put their workers through, especially around peak season, around the pandemic. Give some of my personal insight. Working at Amazon, every day you don't know what to expect. We don't have a contract. We don't have something that's bilaterally agreed upon as what the work will be. You go into work, you've been working at the same pace for 5 months. Today's the day your manager comes up and says, hey, the rate's now $270, you're at $250. What can we do to help you pick it up? Yeah. Or you show up and the role you have, you're supposed to have 10 people on the conveyor belt. Hey, there's 6 today. The managers, as if they have no idea what happened, said, oh, we're just understaffed. As if it wasn't their plan the whole time. And that understaffing, that hurts. That puts a lot of physical stress and mental, psychological stress on people because the company frames it like, hey, we're all a team, we're just trying to get the work done. Well, if the team wins the championship, we don't all get the same trophy, so that doesn't even hold up. Also, in addition to the contract, we're subject to policies that we don't have full transparency. Managers come in, will be at the building for 3 to 9 months. Hey, they're incentivized, hey, bring a new work process in that saves us all this time, all of this money. And then they say, hey, we're actually doing things this way today. And it's like, well, you're not gonna ask the people who've been working here for 5 years how it should be done. And another part of this is Amazon's newfound emphasis on safety. Safety to whose incentive? Because the safety that they're pushing is what allows them to keep their insurance payments low. It's like, well, everyone's you have to have your steel toes, but make sure you're working as fast as possible to get this package out. But do it safely. I had a coworker who was a tall guy. His job was taking packages out of a big cardboard box on a pallet. All those little envelopes you see, thousands of them in those big cardboard boxes. You'd be bending over for 20, 30 minutes trying to get them all out. So he had a smart idea of bringing a little set-up camping chair, a little tiny stool. So we could sit and do work, save his back. Hey, he wants to work there for a time. He doesn't care about what the profit is that quarter. Manager comes over, hey, that's a safety issue. You gotta put the chair away. Well, the safety issue is asking someone to bend over for, 7 hours and take packages and put them on a belt. But that doesn't serve their interest. But these issues that we face in Amazon, they're not unique to us. It is the delivery sector itself, the logistics which are doing the same practices to the same types of workers, and it's because they're in competition with each other. You know, they wanna have, what's the highest profit per package we can have? Let's go back to our shareholders, look at how great we're doing. You know, the workers are the ones in the crossfire with that. Amazon wants to improve their cost per package, you know, that's me and my friends who have to bear that brunt. UPS does the same, that's Eric, that's Chad, I mean, that's all you guys that have to bear that brunt. You know, and this leads to these problems like the understaffing. You know, we're in cost cutting season, you know, peak season is crazy, but hey, this time of year is just as brutal, because they're trying to do all that work with less people. And generally, I mean, we can chalk this up to a lot of things, but it falls down to, in this sector, in the delivery sector, logistics industry, we don't have the say at work that we deserve. We don't have that influence on the work process. We don't have the influence on saying, this is what's safe, this is what's sustainable, this is what allows me to do this job for my life, not just so you can be in and out of here in 3 months as my manager, gunning for a new promotion. You know, this also extends to how our schedule is. You know, it was a couple days after Thanksgiving, me and my coworkers found out the day before it was supposed to happen, that we wouldn't be working 40 hours a week during peak season. We had mandatory 60-hour weeks. That's 6 days a week. You know, and I have friends who were like, young guys, like 21, 22 years old, they started off that month doing fine. 3 weeks in, they're wearing braces. Some of them came through the same jobs that they used to do back then, because, you know, they had repetitive stress injuries. You know, stuff that just builds up. You know, that ache when you get home that just doesn't go away. You know, and all these guys, all these people, they're put through that. You know, now we're in the season where they'll say, oh, we actually don't need 70 people to do the job. Let's do it with 60. Hey, remember how crazy peak was? But they, you know, this is their plan. But it's important to recognize that this is bigger than UPS, this is bigger than Amazon. This is an industry. This is workers doing very similar things that are caught in the middle of companies waging a fight against each other. But ultimately, we're the ones who move the packages. We're the ones who do the work, and they're the ones who take the profit off. So what does this UPS Teamsters contract fight mean to me and my coworkers at Amazon? I mean, it means a hell of a lot. You know, because even though we're building our own organizing stories, even though we had organizing victories in my building, we had a petition where we had 75% of my building sign it because of that mandatory overtime. You know, we're trying to build the stories of success that we have, and we're trying to fight for conditions to improve, and we're taking it right to the boss on the shop floor. But ultimately, seeing at the national level, you know, workers banding together and fighting back against one of these companies, I mean, that sets the bar for what unionization gets. Because ultimately, you know, when I'm having talks with coworkers about how are we going to solve this issue on the shop floor, you know, and we're saying, no, they're doing this, that's to our detriment, how do we fix it? And we come up with a plan. The first question that comes to people's minds when we tell them about it and try to get people on board is, will it work? So when we look at the national level, to see a success story, to see this fight of 350,000 workers staying together, holding the line with each other, I mean, a success story like that is incredibly powerful, you know, and that is very inspiring. Because at the heart of it, you know, at the heart of having a contract that the company respects, at the heart of having a union that has that power, is the fact that the workers are ready to fight. And even though we don't have a union, even though we don't have a contract, you know, Amazon workers are starting to fight, and we've been fighting, and we will continue fighting. And it means a lot for us to see at this scale, with this amount of support, with this amount of strength, workers just like us banding together and taking the fight to the boss. Because that's truly where these things are won. That's all I got.
Thank you, Lee. And just to drive that home, I have to bring this up because I'm a labor history nerd. But you know, I think anyone that will tell you that they have the answer for how to rebuild the labor movement is probably full of shit or has a huge ego. But I think we can look to history for inspiration, and often you do see the growth of unions does come in waves. And I think there has to be a moment where workers are seeing success and feel safe that they can take part. Because, you know, the sad reality is for many people, the chances of success usually are fairly low if you try to organize. The whole deck is stacked against us, so we need to see concrete examples, and I think that's where you start seeing it spread. So last but not least, you know, we're talking about the livery sector as a whole. These different companies, you know, they all want to compete against each other, and they would love nothing more for their workers to compete against each other also. And so to counter that, we have to build solidarity and unity. And, you know, another, I think, workforce that people appreciated during COVID and also our presidential election was the Postal Service. So I want to introduce Kevin McCloskey from the National Association of Letter Carriers.
Good day, everyone. Paul, thanks for inviting me. And Richard, thanks for letting a letter carrier in here. It's an honor.
You're all in the same fight.
No, I know. And no, I'm proud to be here. I'm a letter carrier up in Bucks County. I've been a letter carrier for 2 years. Started as a CCA. It's a city carrier assistant. It's basically a part-timer. You're part-time, but you're working 60 hours a week. Can work up to 60 hours a week, and sometimes they push you over that limit. I'm 37, and I've seen coworkers older than me with a lot more to lose come to tears with the stress of this job. Talked them off the ledge of quitting, like just stick it out, we'll get through it. And it took a lot of that camaraderie with your coworkers. They're kind of in the same shit. And everything that Eric had mentioned, and Nate and Richard, like it's, we're facing it across this industry, you're right. And the pressure to do as much as possible in as little time. You know, we've had these issues where it's either we're understaffed or now we're overstaffed. We're hiring tons of part-timers, and it's great. I'm glad we're getting the staffing we need. Now I have these part-timers who aren't guaranteed any amount of hours for a week. When you're CCA, you have no set schedule. You have no set day off. You don't know when you're going to get a day off. You don't know if you're going to work the next day. So you come back and look at that schedule. It's not a way to live. It's not a way to start a career. And luckily, they're members of our union, and we fight. Especially myself, I was a CCA up until September. Now, a career letter carrier. I have my own route. It's took a lot to get there. I did it a lot quicker. It's moving a lot quicker for some people in some places. But I know people that were CCAs for 8 years before they became a regular carrier and started that clock towards retirement. It's an important thing to a lot of people is to know that you're going to be able to retire with pension, benefits, stuff like that. So, but we see the squeeze. We see the squeeze on these part-time positions. We see the squeeze on even the full-time carriers like myself, who, if a lot of people we depend on overtime, sadly, and that's why we're hoping with our contract that's being negotiated this year as well that we'll see a pay raise. We deserve. I think everyone in this country probably deserves a pay raise. Except maybe the CEOs of UPS and Amazon and DeJoy at our spot. But yeah, we're seeing and feeling the squeeze to do more in less time, and it puts a toll on your body, puts a toll on your mental health, and we see it across not just our industry, but we're seeing it across all industries. So one of the reasons I'm here is I'm inspired by the Teamsters struggle in this fight particularly, seeing you rallying. You were rallying last year getting ready for this, right? Like, I mean, sadly, like my union, we have yet to really put any pressure on. We legally can't strike, and there's really not a desire there to at a national level. But I just saw in labor notes, I got an email earlier, there was a rally in Minneapolis, 150 letter carriers who went out and started saying, here's what we want in this next contract. And that's what it's going to take. It's going to take us from the bottom up, demanding and letting them know what we want, what we need, and what we deserve. Teamsters are really fucking good at that. And I am inspired by your fight. I'm going to be there when I can on those picket lines. And I'm going to get other letter carriers. There's letter carriers out there. We know that you set a standard for this industry. So also in a selfish way, what's good for you is good for us too. We can say, hey, this is a standard here. And I truly believe that. I truly believe in the way that you fight. And I hope that we can begin to resolve the issues in this industry, the conditions that we're all having to deal with. Two-tiered pay systems, dividing workers that way. And I can only speak from a city carrier perspective. In the post office, you have rural carriers as well, plus all the clerks that do a lot of processing of the mail. But I've been hearing that the rural carriers who are in a different union, they are seeing a big pay cut because they're paid by how long their routes are, how many hours their routes are. And the post office gone through and said, hey, actually this route, where you got paid this, we think it takes this many hours. So you're gonna get paid, instead of it being a 6-hour route, now it's a 4-hour route. You see people losing $10,000 a year now, like from that happening. So we got a big fight in the post office. We got a lot of unions in the post office. There's gonna be, gonna have to be some communication and some unity across our unions in the post office. But for now, I know that myself and other letter carriers that I know are gonna be sticking and supporting the Teamsters in their fight. And we'll be there every step of the way we can. Thank you. So, one more thing. I've heard some stories about what Amazon workers are doing, and the fact that they're acting like they don't have a union, and they're acting like a union, and taking the fight to their bosses. I'm in a union, and I got union coworkers who are afraid to use what we already have, and you have these Amazon workers who don't have all the protections that we do, taking those risks. So when I talk about inspired and moved by what Amazon workers are doing, it's an understatement. So I gotta give it up to them as well. Thank you for having me.
All right, thank you. So I was thinking, maybe I could ask 1 or 2 questions to the panel to answer, then throw it up to the audience. And so first one is, I mentioned before that the American public is very supportive of unions right now. I think it's the highest it's been in a very long time. I think we have a younger generation that maybe it's because they can't buy a house, they can't afford the same things their parents can, are getting interested in unions. And I think the question is, how do we weaponize that and move it forward? And of course, in each fight, the first order of business, of course, is organizing the members. If they're not ready, nothing else can happen. But I think the second task is, how do we get the public on our side? So I think, my question for each person about your fight, what are some things, and obviously UPS is coming up the soonest, but what are some ways the public, people here who are not Teamsters or not UPS workers or anything, what can they do to kind of support these fights that would actually be helpful in a real way? So maybe I'll start with Richard and go down the line.
So one of the things that we're doing now is that I have package car drivers, our members, every business that they deliver to, get the information. And so what we're gonna do is, once we get that data, we are going to reach out to each and every business that our package drivers deliver to and remind them, hey, we were here every day. We were here during the pandemic. We need you to show up for us during our contract life. If you want to continue to get the services that only we provide, then we're gonna need you to show up. Also, the faith-based community, there's a picture that I love with Ryan Carey when he was talking about part-time America doesn't work. To his right was Jesse Jackson, Operation Push, and what he did in his lifetime for civil rights and things like that. So everything is around this fight. And so everybody here, if you know anybody, a business owner that depended on a delivery from any of the groups that's up here, let them know that August 1st is coming. And if they want to continue to get the greatest service that only Teamsters provide, they need to stand with us. Thank you.
Yeah, spreading the word right now is huge, honestly, is one of the biggest things, I think, because, public support in general is gonna be a big part of this, not only businesses, but, consumers as well. Having consumers reach out to the company and say, what is all this I'm hearing about, what your workers are going through? I'm not gonna use UPS anymore if you don't give them what they're asking for. And also getting the word out about this strike and what we're fighting for will help us stop the company as much as possible from being able to bring in scabs if we do go on strike. A lot of people who will respond to UPS's job advertisements if we're on strike, they won't necessarily realize the reasons why they should not take those jobs. So the more awareness there is out there of what's going on, the easier it's gonna be for us to reach out to people and say, hey, listen, don't cross that picket line. Wait until we finish what we're doing here, and then when that job opening opens up, apply for it again. It's gonna be a much better job and you can get into this union with us. Hold out. So yeah, that's one of the biggest things right now. Obviously, we're gonna have a strike fund. Hate asking people for money, but strike funds are a big deal if you're able to donate. If we do go on strike, showing up to the picket line with us to just show support, show the company that people are standing with us. And also, just having people show up to say that they support you is a huge boost to morale. And that's one of the main things that workers need if they're on strike, is to keep the morale up.
Quick thing I'll add to that, I wish Thanksgiving was coming up, but for dinner table conversation, because one thing UPS is gonna do, they're gonna take, a driver with 30 years seniority at the top pay rate and say, look how much UPS workers make. This is ridiculous, they're already making so much money. But again, remember, most people at UPS are part-timers, are making, essentially poverty wages. And also, we know now with inflation that the money doesn't go the same way anymore, but there's just something to be aware of. We know UPS is actually already doing that in the press. They're gonna take the highest wage rate, and say, look how much they're making, they're greedy, and we need to be able to counter with different talking points. But yeah, maybe I'll kick it to Nate, turning to Amazon, what are some ways, I know it's a different context, you're not currently unionized, but what are ways the public can get involved and support?
Yeah, it's a different question for us, once again, it's important to have stories of success. It's important to have people spread the word about what worked for people. That other people face similar issues to you. That other people, had a similar problem on the job, and here's what they did to fix it. So if you see any stories like that when they do come up, and they are coming up, we're seeing more and more in the news about Amazon workers who are organizing to spread that. But also too, if you have anyone in your life that doesn't know what they want to do, or doesn't know what they want to do with themselves, there's so many jobs now, so many career paths. We mentioned at the start of the panel the expectations that everyone's going to do 8 years of college, learn to rich on cryptocurrency now. But, that there's these many avenues that people believe would be secure, a safe life that is sustainable, that offers you all the comforts throughout the entirety of your life. But if you have someone that doesn't know what to do, I mean, it's important to push them to say, hey, like, there are rank and file jobs. I mean, there's jobs with unions. You know, there's jobs at UPS where you can actually fight for a better say at work. And if they're, you know, if they're a particularly bold person, you can say, hey, work at Amazon. There's gonna be issues that you and your coworkers can work around. I mean, it's tough to offer ways for the public to help right now with Amazon. And, I mean, to be honest, I don't know beyond that too much. But I would say a big thing is to heighten the sense of struggle. Heighten the struggle we're currently in. You know, show that in the logistics industry, right now, the Teamsters are mobilizing to this degree. 350,000 people are getting ready to wage the biggest fight that I've ever seen in my life. I mean, I'm not saying this in offense to anyone, but I was 3 years old when the 97 contract fight was. So this is a really big fight for a lot of people's lives, so it's important to connect with people on that. And really show it as a point that, you know, if we're all gonna have a safe, guaranteed way through this whole thing, you know, it's gonna be because we work with each other, and because we stand up together.
As far as the post office goes, one big issue that I'm starting to see is Louis DeJoy, the Postmaster General. He has this 10-year plan to modernize the post office, and a large part of that plan is taking, let's say you have Philadelphia. Philadelphia has a bunch of small post offices, has distribution centers as well, but instead of letter carriers reporting to, say, Southwark and South Philly and 30th Street, they're going to report to one hub, regardless of where they live. They might have moved to be closer to their post office where they work, and now, hey, here's this hub. Sometimes for some people it might be a 30, 40-minute drive. I'm not saying that's happening in Philadelphia, just saying that, for example, and they are starting to implement this in different parts of the country, and it's going to uproot families. It's going to uproot these community post offices and you have letter carriers that are part of the community. This would change that and be a major inconvenience for a lot of letter carriers who live right near the post office they work. There's a small grassroots movement of community members to push back against this, because they want their letter carrier to be somebody they know in their neighborhood or close by, and somebody who they know is going to care about them and their route, and the customers there. So if you see anything like that pop up, also the post office is always under threat of privatization, and it's always been an issue. We've had movements like U.S. Mail Not for Sale. So when you see things like that, like find out when there's a rally, get involved, and until then, show up at a Teamsters picket line, support them because they're out there. So.
All right, so I think now we can throw it out to the audience if anyone has questions. I don't think this cord is not long enough. You could ask it from your seat, keyword being question. But yeah, maybe start with Kate.
Hi, thanks for sharing all of that. My name is Kate. I'm a steward in District Council 47, Local 2187, which is the non-supervisory local of city workers. And it's been cool to hear you guys share about what your challenges are. I started as a part-time worker for like a private branch of the library. Had to wait like 2.5 years to get a full-time union job.
what you should do, number one, is get rid of that fear. That's gonna stop you right from the beginning. The next thing is you should get you a group of people, within your workforce and start organizing amongst yourself. Come up with ideas and a plan and a vision and just start working it. Just be intentional, non-stop, be aggressive, have conversations with your leadership. And if your leadership does not want to listen to you, unfortunately, you gotta do what you gotta do and vote them out, and you and your group implement your vision and your plan, then you start to see the things change. But that's what we did here. We had the same type of situation. There was some contracts for us doing this. They didn't want to listen to us, so we got a caucus together and we worked it. We had a plan, we had a vision. We just kept it going, till now we're here. So it takes time. So don't give up. But the number one thing, you gotta get rid of that fear. You gotta get rid of it. When they tell you no, you say whatever. You just keep pushing. I'm being honest, because I'm speaking from experience. Because that's how we had to do it. You know, we were afraid too. You know. So, but at a certain point, you can't let your fear stop you from doing what you know is right. If you feel as though that is right and move, have your leadership, if they don't want to get involved, then vote them out. But that's something that's what I would do, because that's what we did.
Anyone else? Take a shot or?
Can I ask, do you have a leadership election before this contract comes up for you, or do you?
No, we just had one.
Got it.
And we did get out a lot of old stale people.
Okay.
And, which is good, we've made like huge progress, and there's definitely openness towards talking about bargaining, for the common good and open bargaining. And I think it's kind of a situation of, not knowing how to like execute a lot of the things that you guys are doing, like tabling outside, or like, I don't know if it's in 623 or a different local where you're having like unity breakfasts across the different, regions, just like different things like that. I think it's, like moving towards execution, even though there's openness to ideas. Does that make sense?
We do a lot of things. And we have
Yeah.
a 623 day, where we're just like a big party for the local, June 23rd. You know, we just come out and, have some water ice, pretzels, and talk about the contract, how we don't like the boss, and how we plan on, getting some grievance money for them, and just have a good time. Things like that. When the Eagles were, the Eagles. I'm not an Eagle fan, right? But I know, man, my members, man, they love the Eagles. So we had got these shirts that had green 623 shirts with the Eagles on there. I had to wear them. I had to sing the chant and all that. but that's the stuff that you got to do to get more people involved. Whatever I got to do to get members involved, if I got to sing the Eagle chant, I'm gonna sing it. That's what I got to do, and it worked. Would you like to meet?
Yeah.
See, yeah, some videos bad.
Let's hear it.
Yeah, if I can just add real quick. So as far as like the tabling that we're doing, we do have the advantage that our contract allows Rich to just write a letter to UPS management and say, Eric's not gonna be at work this day and there's nothing you can do about it. So I don't have to show up at work, I can just be outside tabling members instead. Obviously, that may not be an advantage that you have, or your leadership might not be willing to do it. But if you can figure out a time when some of you are able to take some days off, or if there are days that you're not working and you can coordinate some people to be in a place where your coworkers are all gonna see you when you're coming out of the building and you're just sitting there on the sidewalk with a folding table set up. What we do is we make some flyers that have info on them. Like recently we've been handing one out that says, here's all the information about how much UPS made last year, how much the CEO made, and it says, what did you get on it? And it's literally just designed to make people angry.
Yeah.
But it works. And all sorts of things like that. And it also, we also flyer our members for our monthly meetings when we do that. You could flyer members for meetings that you wanna have, your own meetings, and say, hey, if you don't like this, this, and this, and you wanna talk about how to get it, come to this meeting that we've organized, and you can hopefully get people involved that way. But, yeah, it might just be more difficult for you to figure out a time
in the interest of continuing to embarrass people, David Zimmer in the back is from Local 676 in South Jersey, also UPSer. He started organizing breakfast meetings just as a simple way to get people involved. You don't have to say anything more about it, but if you want to, okay.
Because it goes with
Yeah.
the point that she made is, you have coworkers that are scared to speak up in the workplace. So that's why we don't do parking lot meetings. Like, the IBT's pushing parking lot meetings, get members involved. Members don't wanna speak up for a manager. So that's why we moved to a coffee shop. So we meet up every Friday morning at 8 o'clock before work, and we discuss issues in the coffee shop. Then, the clock hits 8:30, we all head down to our building, get in our trucks and go to work.
So it's half an hour.
That's when we started, and then we're working on getting our morning shift part-timers to start one of their own. Our night shift guys, start one of their own. That way, everyone's kind of on the same page, everyone's still united, but separate, shift-wise as it is. So it's, I don't even know how to explain it, it's caught me off guard, but.
Sorry.
It's easier to talk outside than it is there, Cause you think, like me as a driver, I'm thinking, what route I have today? I wanna talk to my loader of my truck. It's more engaging being in a more comfortable setting than a hostile work environment. It's the best way I can explain it. And if you take your core group of whoever, just start with them. Then you can get them, help work it on next. Like we started with 12 last week, then we had 22 this morning.
Oh, wow, okay.
So it grows quickly.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do is keep engaging. Just talking back.
Thanks, David. Sorry, it's the teacher in me. I gotta just call people. Thank you, David. Yeah, figured that. And also, I should clarify, questions could be for everyone at once on panel or one individual.
Yeah, hello everyone, Greg, I'm actually, I organize with Kate in the caucus in our union together, so I don't wanna, reiterate that, also wanted to say that I did hear recently that, SEPTA has been trying to work with companies to organize special bus routes to provide better transit access to those companies. But what companies have told SEPTA is that, I don't know if they told them directly, but we're down low, that they don't want to have that set schedule because that'll create a captive audience of, not captive audience, it'll create an opportunity for workers to have the conversations off-site and on the bus. So they wanna try to make them drive more so that they are, not having those conversations. So that's kind of just something I learned recently, but it goes deep. Yeah. I guess my question, I know this, maybe this is kind of what I thought was a major thread of this panel, and I appreciate everyone's stories that what happens, I guess, so UPS is on strike, an employer, they rely on package delivery from UPS, but there's other options, they can go with FedEx, they can go, with Amazon or USPS. I know that you're sticking together, you're gonna go to try to form as much solidarity, go to the pickets to support, but what is the strategy to make it so that it's squeeze it, the UPS is they might take a temporary loss, I guess, and still suck the profits off to the to the CEO and the stuff like that. How do you make it so that actually this puts pressure from their customers then to tell them, hey, we can't get packages anywhere. We don't need to settle this strike or whatever.
So UPS has 340,000 workers. They're not going. They can't account for that. It's impossible. 97, I believe, in 15 days, UPS lost about $800 million. $800 million in 1997. It's a lot different right now in 2023. You're you're talking about a couple $1 billion they're gonna lose, and they know that. So it will behoove them to do the right thing. So that's in the back of their mind. They know they're gonna lose a lot of money. One day they might lose $800 million. 2 weeks in 2023 with all the competition that they have, they can't afford it. We have all the cards in our favor because there's nothing that you can do. You can't go to a store and get what UPS provides because they don't make anything. They don't manufacture anything. Everything that they have is based on the worker. If the worker don't show up, they don't have anything. So we have every card in our favor. We just have to be united and make sure that we play it at the right time.
I saw the right hand first, and then I'll go around. Did you still have a question?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
yes, the international made a very public thing, I guess this was a week and a half ago, and targeted the 17th, of coordinated public things to begin to educate around, the base of the contract, which is very useful in my experience, which tells a little bit about what's happening in labor. So my question is, well, several. The idea, are there gonna be any more of those, coordinated or days that the international is talking about going forward to August 1st? Are there plans to approach other unions, speak engagements, public? I mean, this town is getting a lot of blows, but it is a union town. For example, TWU, the building trades, all these workers have, been hit a lot lately in the last 10 or 15 years in this state. And the airport workers, which there was a struggle a few years about that. So my point is that in terms of publicly reaching out, solidarity with other organized workers in the city and unorganized. So that's just my question. And then what's planned in the next few weeks, in terms of broader solidarity to bring, in addition to what has been said about what you're doing inside the local unions and UPS.
So there's a big rally in California this weekend. I believe it's tomorrow. The general president and I believe local 952 and 396, a lot of the West Coast locals, they're going to have a big rally in preparation for Monday as they begin national negotiations on April 17th. I know we're going to have a rally here probably later in the month or the beginning of May around the same issues. Now to your question about other unions, every rally that we have a lot of community support. Other local unions come out, whether it be Teamster or AFL-CIO affiliates. We have a lot of support from the community and other labor organizations within the city. Every time we've had one, we had a lot of people come out and support. Even some of our council people and state reps have came out as well to support.
I want to make sure I don't ignore the back. I think you had your hand up earlier. Question?
Sure, yeah. Question for you all and the room too. My name's John. I moved to Chicago a few years ago. I got the really wonderful opportunity there to spend the 2010s learning from a little union you may have heard of called the Chicago Teachers Union, which recently won some interesting victories. That's another conversation. But one of the things I learned from the CPU in that time is that strikes are won through what happens in the workplace and on the picket line, but also in the hearts and minds of community members and what they think about the strikers and their attitude towards them in the press. And so I guess my question is about next steps in that regard. I mean, I think we should talk to our friends and family. Like that's good. Don't get me wrong. But like, can we do something at a larger scale than that? Some of the things I'm kind of thinking, and this is just brainstorming. I want to know what everybody thinks. But we've got this mayoral primary coming up. That's wild. It's a wild election thing. I'm new to the city, but it seems unusual, right? Are they going to come out to that rally or any of those? Can we pressure them? Are they holding town halls where we could go speak to them? Are there other leaders in our communities who would be supportive and would come to the next meeting that we hold like this, that's larger? Hopefully we'll have some press. Or even if they don't come out, can we pressure them to do so? I'm thinking about the fact that during the pandemic we all said we're thankful for our essential workers. We all have these yard signs and we all took up collections and all this, but where is that now? Right? 10 years into the gig economy, what's happened to that? I think we can use that fact So I mean, those are some of the things I'm thinking, but like, you know, I'm new to the city, I don't really know the landscape really well, so I'm curious, you know, do we have ongoing meetings with people in this room or others who we haven't yet met, you know, to try and figure out how to take the energy and momentum we've got here and keep it going?
I have something. Okay. And I was gonna save this pitch for the very end, but, you know, a lot of people already signed in at the back. Make sure you do that before you leave, because we wanna be in touch about upcoming things. And so right now, I mean, there is no, complete set plan, but we are, I think, thinking about some good ideas. So you mentioned like signs, you know, recently some of us spoke with someone from Oakland. There was a teacher strike in 2018. They partnered with groups, I mean, they painted the whole city with "We support teachers" signs, and I can envision us doing that for UPS workers, you know, order signs, find businesses, homes. I think there's stuff like that. There's obviously showing up to events, and it's funny, Richard tags, I think, probably every politician in the city on Twitter in the lead up to events. But we, you know, there's definitely outreach in that sense. You know, I'm even thinking about maybe closer to, like, maybe we knock doors with the union, you know, knocking doors with people, getting them to support, to sign on, get a sign. So yeah, there isn't like a complete set plan, but there are ideas. So definitely sign in, because we want to be in touch with people about where this goes next. So I just wanted to say that now, but any other thoughts? Okay. I'm inserting myself on the panel. Aurelia?
Yeah. I work on the railroad, out of the South Philly yard. And in fact, we take UPS trains from Philadelphia up to North Jersey, and then we take them back. So there's, you know, there's a direct connection. And people probably heard we voted last year, really for the first time in years, to strike 115,000 rail workers. I'm in the conductors union. The Brotherhood of Locomotive Engineers, of course, is Teamsters. So we have a direct connection. We move the same freight. And so it's no question. I mean, what we face is the same things the brother talked about, the part-time, you know, the conditions. It's the same thing on the railroad. The main issue that we voted to strike for was for the conditions, not for the pay. I got written up in the midst of the pandemic for taking time off to go to the doctor to get a vaccination. That is, they had cut the workforce to the bone so much across the company I work for takes trains from Florida all the way up to Canada. They cut like 30% of the workforce. So they refused to allow us to get time off. So literally, you got written up if you went to the doctor, including if you had doctor's notes. That's why we voted to strike. For the first time, we brought together unions in different crafts. The engineers, the conductors, track workers, signalmen, 12 different unions. The two biggest unions are the conductors and the engineers. So there's no question that the question that you're facing is exactly the same question. The working conditions. I mean, pay is always a question. But you know what happened to us, of course, right? We were on the verge of organizing a strike. We had picket signs, we had picket captains, all kinds of things. We had started to do things, and I'll say some of the things that we started to do to get the word out. We actually went to football games, like the Ravens. We had, you know, different unions went together to the Ravens football game in Baltimore. We leafleted. Basically, just to explain to people, we're fighting to get paid sick days, to get days off when we can go to the doctor for our kids, for our wife, you know, stuff like that. And we leafleted. I think, you know, that's the kind of things that we started to do. And we started to have some rallies, but I don't think enough. But we started to get the word out, so I think now more workers, more people, I think, probably even in this room know that workers that work on a railroad don't have the best job in the world. A lot of people think, you know, it's a great job to make a lot of money, but the conditions are horrendous. I was talking to Richard earlier. We're on call 24/7. On call. You can be called every 10 hours. You have no set schedule. They pushed us back. We used to have set schedules. They pushed us back over years and years. So what you're facing with part-time is what we're facing, the same problems. So I think this is, you know, what you're going through, they forced us back to work. The Biden administration, Congress just imposed the contract with no changes. So that's what we face. They use the Railway Labor Act, you know. Now, one thing is, we did agree that if any union was able to get on strike, we would all honor the picket lines. If you go on strike, we got the yard right, it's like half a mile from Oregon.
Yeah.
I live in South Philly, you're literally
Right there.
the south, right there. We have another yard in school, on the school. We will not cross the picket line. I mean, you know, we have a lot of weaknesses. We have a lot of weaknesses, you know, God knows that, but that's not one of them. So, my point is, let's work together, there's no reason, and we can gain from each other's strength, you know, and I think one thing we also did, we started taking local members, before the contract was up, to different other strikes and struggles that were going on. Like, we went up to Lancaster, I went up with my local president up to Lancaster for the bakery workers on strike at Kellogg's. They faced the same question. At the end of 8-10 hours, the boss could come in and say, okay, you gotta work another 2 hours. Then they could come in after those 2 hours, say, oh, you gotta work another 2 hours. And they did that 6-7 days a week. That's what they were doing, and they get rid of the 2-tier. Same basic, just a different version of the part-time, 2-tier. No, it's not the same benefits, et cetera, et cetera. My president's never been on a picket line. I'm just saying, that's the reality. That's the reality. We took hands. Not many people have been on a picket line. I just was over at Rutgers Camden yesterday. We should get people, get over to Rutgers Camden. So I think those are things, like when we took members over to different strikes, they learned what's possible. And they also gained confidence. Like one striker up there in Lancaster told me, says, 26 years he was on the job. It was that first strike in 25 years. He says, all these people, I didn't even know them. You might see them in a cafeteria, you're hundreds of people, and say hello, but you don't know anybody. Now you not only know them from going through the strike, but you got each other's back.
Right.
So it's a totally different situation coming out of that strike. So if we bring our members from our locals, start 1, 2, 3, whoever will go to different strikes, whether it's the Ramden, the Camden picket line, small, but go get out there and talk to the people. One guy I talked to yesterday, he says, I've never been on strike before, I was never even in a union before. And he's a stalwart on the picket line. I mean, it's great stuff. So I'm just raising, we got a lot in common here. As you said, it's all postal work, Amazon, we're all on the same boat. Let's work together and figure out what we can do. So some public rallies. One other thing, I know the guys, the UPS drivers, of course, in South Philly, you get to know them over time, right? We can get some signs in our neighborhoods, in our windows, support the UPS, the Teamsters at UPS. We can just get a bunch of them and put them in our windows, and all over Philly, all over the area. You got support. You got support. You go out.
Thank you.
So, we're gonna see, Richard,
I'm definitely gonna use that, going to the stadium.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
I love
The
that.
Sixers already put
Six.
all down.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna be
Phillies
out there.
games.
Yeah.
so, Richard, you gotta wear a jersey.
This is my guys from
You gotta wear a Ben Simmons, no. Right, that's true, that's true. I saw, Monty, and then,
Is there any fear, since this is gonna be a nationwide strike, of, like a federal injunction? Is there a possibility of that in the railroad strike at all? Is there no law on the books?
Yeah, we don't fall in that same Railroad Labor Act. We don't fall in that. That's not to say that old man Biden won't step in. I hope he doesn't, But we don't fall in the same act.
Okay.
maybe we'll take make sure I don't miss you.
I first have a question. Do you guys have a strike committee that folks who aren't members can talk to and try to figure out things we can do if you guys go on strike to help sometimes things you can't do maybe? I think starting that early would be something that'd be very positive. The second thing is, people were talking about, organizing and having meetings off, the shop and coffee shops. And I think all things depend on your strength and tactics depend on that. But something that I know works is if, especially when you're getting ready for a contract, if you hold a union meeting in the middle of a shop, or the part of a shop, department or something, during a break, you hold it and during a break, and let's say you have a 10-minute break, and at 10 minutes, everybody's standing. 11 minutes, 12 minutes, 13 minutes. It breaks the boss's stuff because they lose control. And the union has control and the boss doesn't. And it works really well. And the more visible it is, the better. And if they got a buzzer, it's even better. So I think all things are tactical. And you have to do it outside if you have to, but right inside the shop is where you get your strength. And the boss sees it and the members see it.
Well, to your first question, I mean, my understanding is no, not yet, but I mean, I think this group here and others who I know are interested, I think we're starting to form the nucleus of that kind of public strike support, but my understanding is right now there is not like a formal, strike
Yeah,
committee.
so we're gonna have some strike captain training here soon. The closer it gets to, the end of this thing, right now, everything's so much up in the air, I really don't know what's gonna happen. But I think by the end of May, beginning of June, we're gonna have, our team together, strike captains and things like that. But right now, we don't have that, but we will.
I think so. Vincent, then over there.
Hey, what's up, guys? So as Paul said, I worked at Home Depot, and just to kind of speak to some of the stuff that I saw from UPS workers, if you don't mind a quick anecdote. So I had a homie, Nick, who's from the Oregon UPS Center, and he would pull up in the summertime, like we would literally pull fans up for him, because when he opened that back door, like we would be in a 90-degree like receiving end, and like that hot air would just blast out. You'd see him covered in sweat, and like mad respect to my bro, cause like the dude just take it. He just bought a new house, just got married, just had a kid. Like that's who we're showing up for. When we show up if they go on strike in August. And so I just really felt it was incumbent to say that, to show solidarity for you guys, cause yeah, you guys definitely do deal with some shit, and you definitely deserve better, because it's not like you guys are lazy. It's not like you're just sitting around, you're moving around a bunch of heavy boxes. I work at UPS too, so I know the type of work that they do. So just wanted to say that. And then to just all the organizers up front, I get to talk to a lot of organizers across the country in a couple different capacities now with some opportunities that I have. And something I always like to ask people, just because I'm sure we also have many organizers in the room, like what do you guys like look to for inspiration? When things get really difficult, right? Sometimes in these moments it's very hard, you're taxed mentally, emotionally. So like, what inspires each of you to fight the way that you do, to come to events like this and to, rock out for your fellow workers?
Question?
I don't know if I would formally declare myself as an organizer.
You are.
And ironically, it's fitting that the thing that really inspired me a lot was the book was it Teams to Rebellion. It was written about the opening act of like really the CIO organizing, one of them. So that as like a thing that remember that there's been a lot of huge battles in labor, and it's a lot of people that throughout the decades have fought for every single thing they got. And to read stories like that and hear about like the long-term fights, and how there was years where people struggled, and it took years to win what they finally deserved. That's very very inspirational, but I would say also too, it's like, really talking with coworkers and like know what we're all going through together, you know, in our own personal lives. And it's like, I think that really lights a fire when it comes to like, you know, I'm tired. I mean, my shift is at like 1 in the morning, so it's like, sometimes I go to work tired, I sometimes go up the days because I don't want to be at work. And it's like, you know, I have a conversation with a coworker about something that makes them happy and that happened for them over the weekend. And, yeah, there's a lot of power. And I would say like, draw the power from your friends and your coworkers and the fact that you're all just trying to do the best you can. Do the best you can with each other.
That's for all you guys, by the way, before we go there.
For everybody?
That's for, yeah, for all of you, I think it would be good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that book, like, labor history, I mean, I can be a nerd with that. I grew up, my dad's a singer, he sings Irish Rebel songs. I grew up listening to Irish Rebel songs, and then you start finding all those like Irish labor songs and shit, and those long struggles, like you said, the long struggles where the workers stuck it out, like regardless of all of the things that got in their way. Every time I read a story like that, and I get down, before tonight, I was like, actually Paul called me, I was like, dude, I didn't know what I was gonna talk about, and I had like 5 conversations with coworkers today, and they got me fired up, like, I was pissed off. I was pissed off for them, with them, like, and, that's the stuff that keeps me going, but yeah, listen to some Irish Rebel songs too while you're at it.
It's not a required answer, but either of you have any?
Well, when I first, I did take a job at UPS because I wanted to be a labor organizer, so when I first started, I was motivated by principles. Now I'm mostly just angry. So I think I remember specific instances, like supervisors at UPS walk around with radios on them and they like apparently just think that we don't have ears because they just say things really loud on the radio that we can overhear. So I think about like, this time that a manager was walking by me and she was talking on a radio about how someone was too incompetent to be a loader and they should move them to some other place. And a person on the other end of the radio said, I don't think there should be anything here, I think it should be a greeter at Walmart. And this person was laughing hysterically at that. I just wanted to turn around and throw a box at their head. I think about the time when one of the drivers I load for came in and looked at his truck and muttered under his breath, well, I guess I'm not seeing my kids today. Things like that really motivate me a lot. I got a pile of them now.
So my number one thing that keeps me pumped up is my faith in God. That's the number one thing. And then I just hate when people try to get over on working people. That really bothers me, man. It does. Sometimes I can't sleep at night because I remember being in the truck. I remember being in the warehouse. I remember all those things and the harassment from the bosses. I can't deal with it. So whenever I get maybe a little down or something, my father told me something maybe about a year ago. He said, son, you have to have a profound trust in the protective care of God. And I believe that. No matter what happens, our faith and my trust, knowing that I'm going to be protected because we're doing the right thing. We're fighting for the lives of our members and their families and their communities. So whenever, I get a grievance and we may lose it or the company may get one over because the contract says it can do something, and I can't produce the outcome that I want for my members, I often go back to what my father told me. And I just keep pushing, keep grinding, because I know sooner or later, August 1st is coming.
Hi, everybody. I have a couple of things I wanted to share. I'm an organizer for a nurses union nationally. So I'm often, elsewhere in the country, and I was curious to hear from you all. Are there other locals that you are well connected to or want to build relationships with. I would just say for myself, I don't always know where I'm going to end up, but I'm often in the South, usually North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Florida, etc., working with non-union nurses to try to build new unions in the South as much as possible. So I was just curious to hear about any relationships you have with other locals, and maybe I'm looking forward to bringing some of my non-union nurses to the picket line, to maybe their first picket line with UPS workers. And the other thing I was going to say is just hearing sort of a little bit about the potential for community support is I'm sure that many of my colleagues are in relationship with other Teamsters organizations, but I'll definitely bring to the table, right? We use UPS. I get the emails all the time. I'm getting a new shipment of flyers or whatever, so definitely wanting to, participate in having us organizationally reach out and say, you better give them what they want or else, right? And we need the workers to be able to do their job safely and well so we can get all of our propaganda and everything. And then I think the last thing I was gonna say is, I forgot. So, but that's all. I want to hear a little bit about connections with other locals or connections that you would maybe find helpful if I'm out of town.
Well, we could talk more after. Local 71 in Charlotte, North Carolina. I do know they're doing 2 public rallies on April 26th and 27th.
Awesome.
But in terms of the South, I can maybe connect you there. Right, in 509 South Carolina. We can connect afterwards. Many locals are doing public rallies and wanting that community support. If we have time, maybe one final question, if there is one. Oh, okay.
Real quick, could you say more about demands you have, better protections against overwork and underwork? Because it sounds like we got people working 60-hour weeks during peak, people not getting any hours when they're starting out. So, maybe those kinds of protections are things other workers could, try to build on.
Yeah, so basically, that is referring to the fact that you're as a part-timer, you are expected to do more and more in less and less time. So you're being overworked in the sense that they're throwing mountains of boxes on top of you and expecting you to move ridiculous amounts of them per hour, and underworked in the sense that you're barely getting enough hours to get by on. So basically what we want is we want more guaranteed hours for part-timers, and we want to protect ourselves in terms of stopping things like the company throws all this volume at us. It's too much for us to handle, and then they use supervisors doing your work for you to compensate for it. And then if you complain about it, they try to say, oh well, you're not moving as many packages as we expect you to. So if we can get stronger protections, for example, against supervisors touching our work, to make it to the point where, because right now, even if we do file grievances against it, a lot of the time the company will just have them do it anyway and just accept the slap on the wrist. Because it's based on how long they do it for. So if I catch a supervisor doing it for 10 minutes and I file a grievance on them, it's only for 10 minutes worth of work. And I know that they're doing it down there and down there and down there and there too, but I can't see them down there. So, I don't know, for example, this is a concrete thing, but if we could get something like, if I catch you touching a package, the company pays a minimum of a $100 penalty for it, that would actually stop them. Because now if I catch you doing it for even 5 minutes, it really costs. And that will force a situation where they can no longer use supervisors to make up for the fact that they are deliberately understaffing their buildings. And it will force them to give us more time on the clock.
So I'm gonna give like a broader approach for our demand. So it's a big issue for supervisors working. So UPS makes so much money. The supervisor will work, say they work 3 or 4 hours, right? They'll just write the check out, here you go. Now, in our contract where it is now, if that same supervisor works, more than 3 times or 3 times in a 9-month span, they have to pay them triple time. They'll do that anyway because they have so much money. So the issue is we need more full-time jobs. That's how you make that. So one of the things that we can do is when that supervisor works, we want the full-time job now. Because now with that full-time job, you gotta pay wages, you gotta pay benefits, you gotta pay pension contributions. So it's just not one check. There's a whole lot more attached to that. Another thing is we're trying to get rid of is this 2-tier driver classification. I know you guys heard it probably 224. What happens is you have a regular package car driver who has a lot more protections and they make a lot more money. The 224 has no protections and they make about $6 less. So you guys can just imagine what that creates in the workforce. Me and Eric, I'm a 224, he's a regular package car driver. Our trucks are next to each other. He's gonna make $41 an hour. I'm gonna make about $33 an hour. We're doing the same job. He has rights where they can't overwork him 9.5 hours 3 times a week. I don't have that protection. I'm out there all night long. He can come home. What does that create? More division. He can get an 8-hour request. I can't. I get all the overtime, but I'm not making any money. No protections. We gotta get rid of that. Harassment is at an all-time high. They just do not care. There is no really penalty to that. They can harass you, talk to you any kind of way, you catch them, we'll abide by the contract. That's all they will do. It needs to be something in there where it says if the supervisor is continually harassing our members, you need to get rid of them. Why are you keeping them there? But they won't do it. Something like that needs to take place. I can go on and on and on. We'll be until Christmas to talk about the issues, but 224s need to go, harassment needs to change, get rid of the cameras, right? Get rid of the camera. Why are you spying on us? What you looking for? You know, that's not safe. So get rid of that and more full-time jobs. Then we're good to go. And of course, we want more money.
Not a question, but a request, that we get a picture of the group,
Okay.
so that we can post that.
Oh,
across
yes.
social,
Yeah.
Show UPS.
Maybe in
or-
front of but not yet, don't move yet.
Okay.
But, great idea. So, again, like I said, I mean, this is just the beginning. We're kind of the diehard crew. We're on a Friday, beautiful Friday night in here talking about this. So the goal again is to go from here to expanding and getting more people to support this strike. And I think as it gets closer, you're gonna hear about it more. If you remember, speaking of the rail strike, there was people writing about it a year in advance saying this is coming up. But if you remember the week leading up, all of a sudden everyone's freaking out, the media. Something similar might happen with UPS. So we're getting ready now and the goal is to expand out. So again, please make sure you sign in because, we might have a rally late April, early May, for example. We want to be able to reach out so we have a lot of people there. When we start doing stuff like distributing signs, again, we want to be able to reach people. So please make sure you sign in. Also, if Ethan, if you want to raise your hand, he also has a sign-in sheet, for DSA members. We're doing a labor canvas for Seth Overman running for city council. So if you want to get involved with that, please make sure you see Ethan. But let's get another round for the panelists, please. So again, thank you so much for coming out. Again, this will not be the last. I think we'll be seeing each other. And yeah, what do you think? Maybe should we go over there for a picture?
Everybody great.
All right, yeah. Should we get a sign? Let's pick a line practice.